This is a video unlike a lot of the videos that I've been putting out lately, and it is a topic that's extremely important to me. What I'd like to talk to you about is Lyme disease. It's a debilitating disease that is extremely tricky to diagnose, and I know this because I have it. I've been sick for about 2 years. It's really hard for me to describe this sickness to you, but I mention it today because the complexity and the difficulty of diagnosis and treatment is something that if you get Lyme disease, you're going to really need to fight and struggle to figure out. And I want to bring to you today some of my symptoms and treatment procedures and my experience, so that if in the future you find some of these symptoms, or you don't feel quite right, or you don't know which direction to turn, maybe this would give you at least some direction or some means to focus your energy and hopefully get the treatment that you need. I've been sick for about 2 years now, and when I first got sick, I had no idea how sick I really was. It started with what seemed like a simple cold, turned into what seemed like a simple sinus infection, but I had no idea what was coming in the months and years ahead. Another part of why this was so difficult to determine what happened was because I never found a tick on me. I never found a bite, never found a bullseye, no rashes, no actual indication that I had been bit by a tick, never mind one that had Lyme disease. So when I first got sick, I just thought I had a bad cold. I went to the doctors and I was treated immediately for a sinus infection. I was given antibiotics and I took the regimen for about 10 days and I thought I was better. But like I said, little did I know that I was far from getting the results that I had hoped I would get, and just clearing up a sinus infection and a cold that eventually went away. Unfortunately, that just was not the case. Moving forward, I went through months of investigations. I went to all kinds of specialists. I had all sorts of tests performed on me, and nothing was yielding any results. One of the most difficult things to describe is the symptoms that I was experiencing. It was everything from headaches to gastrointestinal discomfort, some achy joints and body pain. And really, honestly, the worst thing for me was confusion and mental cognitive fogginess. The fogginess is like nothing I can truly describe to you. Every single thing I say is going to sound like an oxymoron. It's like I had a headache, but it didn't hurt. It's like I was dizzy, yet I had perfect balance. It's like my vision was blurry, yet I could see just fine. Every single thing that I use to describe what the fogginess felt like makes absolutely no sense. On top of that, the fogginess was like when somebody was talking to you, that they were invading your personal space. It's like they were backing you into a corner and all you wanted to do was push them away, but you couldn't. It felt like pressure was grabbing at your head and squeezing your brain. It didn't hurt, but it just was something that was always there and always frustrating. And the worst part about it was, in my profession, I have a technical job, and I really need to think on a daily basis specifically about what I'm working on. And every single decision, every single thought that I had to legitimately cut through the fog in an effort to get my thoughts out and to complete a sentence. And it was extremely difficult. As I'd mentioned, while I was trying to diagnose what was wrong with me, I went to a number of doctors. I got to the point where my primary care physician just was not able to help me anymore. And in fact, my case was so complicated, he actually cut me from his practice. So when I needed my doctor the most, he actually let me go. And on top of everything else, that was pretty disheartening. So I've lost a lot of respect for the typical medical profession, and it's unfortunate. I have family members who are in the medical profession, and I know they take it seriously, but when I needed my doctor the most, he actually turned his back on me. As I'd mentioned, there's a whole bunch of different tests that were run on me, and different diagnosis attempts that were made for a number of different illnesses that weren't Lyme disease. And I've written down a list so that I can be as complete as I can. It started with a sinus infection. It led to an investigation of my gastrointestinal tract, a CAT scan of my gut, a colonoscopy. I had my blood gas monitored. They actually drew blood from both my veins and my arteries to determine if I had gases in my blood. And strangely enough, one of my tests came back with a high carbon monoxide level, so I actually spent a week walking around with a gas detector trying to determine where my source of carbon monoxide may have come from. I went to see an ENT. All I got out of that was he thought I was depressed. So they tested me for depression. I had neurological and cognitive tests, a series of tests that were performed to try to trick me up and make me forget the things that they told me to remember, and that came back negative. But they also performed a CAT scan on my brain to make sure I didn't have any defects or anything going on in my brain. I was tested for STDs, pretty much every STD that exists. My doctor thought I may have sleep apnea, so I had a sleep apnea test. That came back negative. They thought I had a gluten allergy, or maybe Crohn's disease. So I went on some crazy diets for a while. Lo and behold, it didn't work. I was tested for cancer. Wanted to make sure that my blood cells were okay. I was actually tested for Lyme disease. I was tested for Lyme 3 times, and each time it came back negative. In all, I had over 65 blood tests performed in a 2-year period. I went to see many specialists, a GI specialist, an ENT, an infectious disease specialist, alternative medicine, and a Lyme specialist. Every single specialist had a different angle, all of which came back negative, except for, finally, the Lyme specialist. One of the most important points that I'd like to make is that there's a dramatic difference between the way that traditional medicine and alternative medicine looks at Lyme. Traditional medicine reports results differently than alternative medicine. For example, it's almost like a pregnancy test. In traditional medicine, the test needs to come back with a solid positive on all the most important markers that indicate that you may have a Lyme disease infection. Alternative medicine, it's slightly different. They don't necessarily need to see a full positive result. In fact, a lot of times, Lyme results come back with a faint line or some marker that doesn't necessarily truly point to a positive result. But the important point that I'm trying to make is that with traditional medicine, even if the test does not come back as a complete negative result, maybe some of the markers have a faint line. Maybe none of them are truly positive, but there's a slight indication on some of the markers. Traditional medicine might still call that result negative. And that's what happened to me on a number of occasions at my primary care physician. The difference being alternative medicine, even if the test results don't come back with a full positive result, if there's any indication in some of the key markers that there may be some slight hint of an infection, they call the test indeterminate, not negative. And indeterminate means there's a good chance that there's something going on, and an alternative medicine would likely choose to treat you. And that's what happened to me. Luckily, I have a doctor who looked at my results, and even though the bulk of my test came back as indeterminate, he determined that there was enough indication of a potential infection to actually treat me, and it's working. So here's a shot of my daily pill regimen. I take between 10 or 11 pills per day, and my doctor says I'm lucky if I get through my treatment in a year. So every single day, between the morning and night, this is what I need to take, and I will do so for the next year. The pill regimen consists of some heavy-duty antibiotics, 3 different types. I'm taking magnesium for my cognitive issues, Claritin, which is an antihistamine, try to clear my sinuses, clear my nasal passage, and break up any mucus. I'm taking probiotics to make sure I don't develop any issues in my gut, because basically the antibiotics are totally wiping out my system. I need to be careful. I need to drink tons of water. My doctor says that if I'm lucky, I won't have any liver or kidney issues if I'm careful. But that is honestly the lesser of 2 evils, to risk that than to live with the Lyme disease. And that's how difficult and debilitating Lyme disease is. So at this point, at least I'm getting better. I still struggle a little bit from day to day with my cognitive issues, but it's definitely getting better. I went through a period of time where I had some strong bouts of fatigue. It basically would be daily, sometimes an entire day, sometimes an entire week, where I'd be completely fatigued, and I don't know how I honestly continued to do what I did. Continued to go to work, continued to care for my kids, continued to try to be a good husband to my wife, and I'm lucky that she picked up a lot of the slack and really took charge of things when I needed her the most, so I'm grateful for that. But you know, it's still an uphill battle, and it's something that I'm dealing with, but I'm getting better. And I bring it up for a lot of reasons, mostly because I think people need to be more aware. They need to understand that this can happen to them. I was always the "that can't happen to me" type of guy, and I'd be surprised, and oh, I doubt it, but here we go, and I'm dealing with it, and I'll get better, and I'll be fine someday. But to go through this and to put my family through it is definitely, it's a shame. It's difficult. And a lot of you are probably watching my channel because you're into the outdoors, you're into gear, you're into camping, hiking, all that wilderness stuff. Well, I'll let you know that with that come ticks, and with ticks, the potential for Lyme disease. So you need to be very, very careful. Seriously. I mean, check yourself every single time you leave the woods. Check yourself while you're in the woods. Take your clothes off at a careful designated location. Don't bring that stuff into your house. If you're hiking with a dog or any pets, I think you're significantly increasing your chance to potentially get a tick bite or even Lyme disease. If you think about it, your animal is going to bring all of that potential into your home, climbing on your furniture, climbing through your clothes, playing with your kids, rolling on your carpets. You need to be extremely diligent about treating your animals, watching your animals, and inspecting your animals to ensure that they're not bringing this potential disease into your home. And finally, if there's any details that I left out, I'll certainly try to share my experience in any more detail with anybody who wants to contact me. Leave a message. I will try my best to respond to you. You can leave an email or you know, any contact information, and I'll do my best to respond to you, to give you the information if you think you have this disease, or if you are looking for some advice to move forward, or just need somebody who's gone through it to give you, you know, some advice and lend you a hand. So again, I know this wasn't the typical video, but it was something that was very important to me. I wanted to get this message out to you and get it out to you as fast as I could, so that if you ever question anything, if you ever feel suspicious, or you're not sure exactly what direction to turn, if you've gone through testing and everything's coming up negative, I strongly suggest you go to a Lyme specialist. You are going to have out-of-pocket expenses. It's reasonably expensive, but it's not earth-shattering money. You have to do it. You have to get treatment, and you have to find a cure, because this disease will take you out. The long-term repercussions are extremely dangerous. The neurological potential is extremely dangerous. The difficulty to your joints and the rest of your body can really take a toll and be debilitating. So take it seriously, try to find a specialist, and most of all, just take care of yourself. Be aware and do your best to try to minimize exposure. And if you do get bit by a tick, seek help immediately. I hope you found that informative, and I hope the best. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you soon.